as Freo have qualified for the 2025 finals. The first time they've made the final since 2022.
Only the 9th time in their history. I can name all of those years.
Let's go.
2003, 2006, 2010.
We need someone in the chat.
I know I'm right.
Okay.
Then they missed 11, but they went 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay, yeah, that would have been like peak Ross Lyon.
Yeah, when they played in the grand final.
Yep.
And then they didn't make it from 15 to 22, and now 25. That's 9.
Gotcha.
It's weird that I know that. An outstanding victory for the Fremantle Dockers. I think this is the crown jewel of their season, considering the stakes.
Yep.
I think it was more impressive than their Collingwood win. And
absolutely, given the stakes,
potentially a coming of age. I don't know how deep they'll go into the finals. They could win a final. Who would they play in week 2? Like they'd be potentially playing like a Brisbane or a Geelong away in week 2. So I think it gets a bit sticky for them there, but they can celebrate now a tremendous victory.
Yep.
And I think we decided they'd won 5 out of those top 8 clashes.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And like if you actually look at the Dockers on paper, there's not really, as much as we say they're not like one of those dangerous sides that has a real like a major point of strength, then they don't really have a weakness anywhere. I feel like
Agreed.
a lot of in the off season, you could probably say that they didn't have any really high end small forwards. But now they've gone and got Bolton, who can kind of kick those big clutch goals for you. Murphy Reid looks like he's given a bit of a different dimension in the forward half. And then Swikowski, who was probably their best small forward, is now probably almost like their third in line guy.
Yeah.
It's a bit more like a role sort of type player. Defenses from a back six point of view always been pretty strong. And then like the midfield's well balanced. So they don't really have any holes, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I agreed with that from that point of view. I suppose the caveat to all of that is I feel like a lot of their wins have their best wins.
Yep.
The common denominator where they played like animals. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that pressure rating hit 283, and that last quarter against Collingwood was insane. But as far as a brand of football goes, that's probably what is holding them back, I think, from us considering them a real chance to go deep. It's just that they've put out these superhuman efforts and they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
But it's not as sustainable as like a system that wins games over and over again.
That was what I said last week. I said somewhat, and this is okay to be like that, but there's an element to Fremantle's victories, I feel, this season that are like vibes based.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, feeling the emotion and riding the wave of emotion. And even on like this win, which is really important and shows a psychological strength, I feel like there was still potentially a vibes element to that game.
Yes, I agreed. But I also think the psychological strength is very true of this football team right now. Despite like the narrative around them not playing finals and shanking those finals opportunities, they're also a young team.
Yeah.
And I think there's been lots of mental growth this year from that point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at their back end of the season where they've had to win, it's really only the Brisbane loss, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And weren't they like 10 from 11 before that?
Yeah, 11 from 12, I reckon.
So what are they now? 12 from 13?
12 from 14.
12 from 14, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before that game.
Yeah, that's true.
So like incredible form to carry into the finals. Like as you said, like not necessarily the performances there, but we have seen teams go on deep runs into finals that where like I do remember back to that 2023 Collingwood year where they had a lot of close wins and there were the naysayers that were like Collingwood, they're not smashing teams enough. They're not dominating teams enough. So they kind of let everybody in on some level, and you can still go on a deep run. Collingwood kind of bucked that in that year too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think mental strength is something we got to give Fremantle credit for, which is not to undersell their talent. I think they're talented, but it's not. I guess it's the systemic way they win games. It's not the way they win games, if that makes sense.
What do you think? Because there's a lot of criticism continuously around Longmuir. Do you think there's anything in that, or do you think he's what do you think of him?
It's possible. Like, I always go back to the age thing and think, well, outcomes versus expectations. My expectations, I still think the outcomes he's achieving are not bad at all. having said that, Joycey, good friend of mine, big Fremantle fan, made the comment earlier in the year. He said he felt like Fremantle get buy-in games through their talent rather than their system.
Yep.
Which I think is pretty valid. They do have talented players. In this game, it probably wasn't talent or system, as talent is fair, but it was arguably just the team football they played, which I suppose is system, but it's not quite what I'm referring to.
It's organisation. It requires, you can't just be to get that amount of pressure.
Yeah.
There's got to be a level of defensive organisation for individual players to understand when to go.
Yeah.
Because if everybody just swarms the ball carrier, it's a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. But they have shown up pretty consistently this year, albeit, again, like there were some wins through the middle patch of the year that were not convincing, but we'll see. We'll see. It's the most likely outcome, I think, is they play Hawthorn next week, and they have beaten Hawthorn in Perth. So
it's such a fine line because if they lost this game today and they don't make finals, you're genuinely starting to go like, okay, it's been as much as there's like some development in the team and the squad and all of that sort of stuff. Like you have to get wins at some point, right? Which brings us on to Thomas Atto's comment here. I get the upsides of Bevo, but at what point do you have to say the results aren't good enough? Surely this Bulldogs list is far too good to be a fringe finals team for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think the level of expectation on these two clubs was completely different today. To be honest, like for Fremantle, I personally would have probably given them a pass for not winning this game.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I think they started underdogs. They've had a 15-win season regardless. They are so much, I reckon, they're a fair bit younger than the Bulldogs.
I think you give Fremantle a little bit too much for the youth factor because I don't think their youth is, as much as they might stack up, like they might look young on a page where you go like have average age, they've got seriously talented players that are in the right age group. Yeah. I feel like I get from a mental point of view, as in like Bontempelli, but like, I don't know, Richards is younger than Sarong and Brayshaw, for example, like inside that Dogs midfield, right? Or about the same age.
No, he's the same age as Brayshaw and they're both 2 years older than Sarong.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's not a good point. I was making that there.
So Sam Darcy is a pretty young talent. And there's Buzzling.
Yeah, you don't have to back me up there. I guess what I mean by that overall is like, if you look at like, if you gloss over the defence, for example, of Freo, not particularly young. I think the forward line, other than Murphy Reed's probably not overly young.
Amos is young. Tracy's young. I think these guys are in their early 20s.
Yeah.
Jackson's still
young.
24.
They're not super, they're not Essendon young. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of...
I think the data would suggest it's close.
Between,
maybe not this current Essendon.
Yeah.
Like Essendon's had the injury crisis, right?
Essendon's also playing Goldstein.
Yeah, true.
Like...
Well, they had 5 tonight.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. How old's 5 though? Like 32? He's not that old.
No, he's 34.
35. Jeez,
34,
I'm bad with ages right now.
Yeah, no,
let's just end that conversation.
Yeah, I think the level of expectation between these two teams was different tonight. I would have thought it was more forgivable for the Dockers to lose tonight than it was the Bulldogs.
Really? Okay.
In particular, in the way they got shown up for hunger as much as anything else.
See this though. I come back to pre-season with this, and I get you as far as expectations change throughout the season when you start to perform. But every man and his dog had Western Bulldogs in the bottom 8 at the beginning of the season. So what changed everybody's mind for the expectation to rise so much?
I honestly don't remember where I had them.
Okay.
That makes it tough.
I went on podcasts in the preseason where we talked about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I strangely had them because I did like their up-and-coming young players. And I said they could be a bolter. Like they're a bit of a smoky team for me. Not a I reckon they're going to finish in the top 4 or even top 8. I think in my actual ladder predictor, I had them 9th.
Yeah.
But everybody thought that was a crazy call that they could make the finals. They were the team that was like dropping for everyone, sort of coming out of aging players, young players, sort of that combination. It was in like a flux. I feel like that was a common thing with them.
Possibly. I can't remember if I agree with that. So I can't take a stance on that because I cannot for the life remember where I had them. But look, they're a team that over a number of years now has faltered when put in that situation. Like West Coast, of all clubs, put it to them, in the second last game of the year and ruined their finals chances 2 years ago. Fremantle made them look second rate today with how hard they played. And and it's probably a bit lame to refer to the 21 grand final, but a lot of that group is still the same. What I'm saying is there's a little bit of a pattern here for the Bulldogs. I'm sure their fans feel that as much as anyone. And where did they finish in 24? That we said that they lost to Hawthorn in week 1 of the finals. So had they made finals and bundled out week 1, I probably wouldn't feel too much concern in isolation, but there is a bit of a body of work here. And then you think, well, are they young? They're not particularly young. They've got some young talent, but as a group, they don't have the same inexperience that the Dockers have in terms of these games.
And do you put that down to Luke Beveridge when you talk about the pattern?
I wasn't going to necessarily make that a Beveridge thing.
Because I actually think it does come in together, because I think Beveridge, I think he probably does, and what people are talking about, like there's a lack of pragmatism to how he sets up, and that's why they're so easy to score against at times. And I think if you probably if you look at that game, as much like Freo was definitely the dominant team, but it all sort of happened in a probably 10-15 minute patch, and then Freo were able to just control the scoreboard around.
That's true.
Like they didn't really have to extend. Other than that, I mean, they clearly controlled the game. I'm not saying that Western Bulldogs were better than Freo for the rest of the game, but the scoring all happened in a quick succession.
It was like 6 or 7 goals in a row.
Yeah. And then from the team that's in front, like if you can control the scoring, then it's fine. And it seems to be too easy to do that against them. I think that's like something how they set up. I think the way that they set up at stoppage, the way that they move players in and around stoppage is like very offensive, which leaves them vulnerable, and probably why they are vulnerable against better teams, and they smash the worst teams. Just that very offensively geared.
It's kind of an indictment that Fremantle put up one of their highest scores of the year this year. I think they might have scored 120 against West Coast, but outside of that, I mean, I don't think Fremantle...
It's not even the same game at that point. When you're playing like a North Melbourne or a West Coast.
But even then, generally speaking, Fremantle, 112 must be one of their highest scores in a while.
Yeah.
Which just shows how... I mean, there's some accuracy and potency on Fremantle's part, which is not part of their DNA, to be honest. It's usually the other way around. Like Fremantle have struggled with being potent and efficient with those opportunities, and they were today, but 112 points against from a team with a percentage of 140.
Yeah. I do think, like, back to this comment about Beveridge, like I've been a fan of him. Like I like those coaches that come in, and when you watch them play and you have a look at the stat sheet and you can see this real like identity on them, which I think Western Bulldogs have been for a while. And like I said, that when I go in and see that their strike rate from scoring from stoppage is just like so much higher than another team, I'm like, they must be doing something really kind of evolutionary in a way to be able to do that. But also at the same time, he's been the coach since 2015.
I reckon that's about right. Yeah.
That sort
Brendan McCartney.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a long time, right? So those older players, like, could they benefit from getting like an up and coming coach in as well? I think that's just a different voice, a different direction could potentially help them. I think that's probably AFL clubs tend to be with moving coaches on. It's like if you're sacking a coach, it's like they've done a terrible job. You can, I feel like you can move a coach on, and it's just a different voice. You're not telling them that he'll be a like Western Bulldogs legend, right? He's won their second flag in history.
Yeah. I guess where it comes to like a little bit of hesitancy from the Bulldogs' point of view is I feel like if you move on your coach, you kind of accept you're not going to win anything for the next couple.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if it comes to their thinking that Bontempelli is going to turn 31 next season, and there's just a risk of throwing out the baby with the bathwater to some extent.
Yeah.
And jeopardizing.
And if they were going to do that, they probably had to have done it when Bont was like 27, 28.
Maybe, yeah.
No, I get that as well.
And he had played in a grand final that year, so
exactly. And that's where it's difficult, isn't it? Like, so a lot of people view that now, like in retrospect, they view that 2021 season as a bit of a letdown because they made the grand final and then got flogged in the grand final. But also Beveridge, like, he has shown that he goes on these like runs where he can get the team up to play like late finals runs like he did in 16, in 21. They were probably somewhat thinking maybe in 2025, 2026, he goes on another tear. What he has shown, and I think which is pretty clear, and I think this lacks the conservatism and pragmatism maybe of some other coaches, is he can't seem to like sustain, like he hasn't ever finished in the top 4, which is problematic. So he hasn't been able to sustain it for season after season or even in season.
Yes.
which is a bit strange.
Yeah, you're true. That's exactly right. After they won the flag, they failed to make the finals the following year. There was a bit of a setback, and then boom, one of the best teams in the competition again in 22. And even the narrative last year, while Hawthorn was being the sexy team, like there was also a conversation around how the Bulldogs were the most damaging team when you gave them that opportunity. And that's still kind of true this year. How many times has a team missed the finals with a percentage of 140%?
It's crazy.
It's just been lopsided in every sense of the word. So
there's like an inconsistency over multiple seasons and in season, which is interesting. So
and their best 22 is lopsided. Like it's just you can see this. It's imperfect.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to take another tactical tinkle.
Tinky. That's good. We've got some comments coming here. Gary Smith. Western Bulldogs' bottom 6 players are their weakness. I would tend to agree with that. The Oscar Bakers, the Lockie Brambles, I suppose I'm trying to go through their defenders. They did draft in the mid-season Michael Selwood out of Western Australia. I'm sort of surprised that he didn't at some point get bought in as like a sort of a back flanker option. I feel like since Ed Richards has gone into the midfield, that extra kind of runner from defence hasn't been there in a high quality. Like Bramble and Baker aren't really that. Johannesson's been back there, but they do. There's definitely a defensive stability to them that isn't really there. And I think it's like mentality over the squad, inability to defend transition, defend from the midfield first. And then also, so it's like a transition running thing and guarding space, but then it's one-on-one defending when you get further back as well. So I think they've got bottom 6 issues. I think they've got a bit of a balance issue because most of their talent is in the midfield and forward of the ball. But yeah, definitely need to find a way. I think that's where the Beveridge conversation comes too, because they can't seem to protect that back 6. I feel like there's other coaches that have weaker defenses on paper, but they can sort of protect them with the system. And Beveridge doesn't really try to do that. He's just all out of offense. Dylan Sang says, it feels like Bevo tries to be too smart with his role players, bottom 6 players. Maybe. Interesting what you mean by that. Like, what would be an example of that? That would be interesting to know. I'm trying to think. Like, he definitely gets funny, and one thing that he's been criticised for, not so much this season, but past seasons, has been like the management of players and the selection of players. I think of Caleb Daniel, McRae. I was always kind of with him on that a little bit. Like, I felt like when he was phasing out those guys like McRae and Daniel, it was probably a positive, and he was doing it to give games to younger guys as they fell into this sort of transition period. What we're seeing now from players like Joel Frazier, I feel like that's a lot better, more modern way to play than players like McRae and Daniel for sure. Scott McLaughlin says, yeah, Dylan, Doggies need a fresh coach. I'm not necessarily saying that they need a fresh coach. I think of all the teams that potentially needed a fresh coach, they're not right up there, but it might be like you would sort of have to know, I feel with Luke Beveridge, you'd have to know what's going on inside the club, and maybe fans know that a lot better than me, and that's why a lot of them are off him.
I think a big variable that doesn't get talked about is how much is he up for it still, because I feel like he'd have to have one of the longest 10 years in the AFL at the moment with 10 years. I feel like that's starting. I'm not actually saying anything about this game, but in general.
No, I agree with
10 years at a football club does burn you out. And I think that was probably why West Coast moved on from Simo, possibly why Goodwin was moved on. Maybe there was a bit of PR around the way they lost that game.
But it's hard to keep, like anything you do, even you think about things that you've done in your life, like it's hard to keep and be dynamic in something for that long, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and Hinckley just had an enormous tenure as well, and it's probably just time for a new voice.
Yeah.
So,
and they can't make that decision themselves. It has to be taken out of their hands at times because they always think one more. Like I can get this done, like, and they're competitive.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that a fresh voice, and like we've seen it go both ways. Like sometimes you can move the coach on and the arse falls out of the club and it's terrible. But other times you see like the Craig McRae situation where probably the safest pick at that point was just to go with Buckley, right? Just continue on. He'd made a grand final. He was doing okay, albeit they'd come off a pretty bad season.
Yeah.
It's like, what do? They get McRae and they bounce. So it goes both ways. Johannesson overrated. They need to move him on. I probably agree with that. Yeah, he's definitely not a top-line halfback anymore.
Yeah, he's 33 now as well.
Yeah, and he's been sort of moved all over the place. Even their top players turn up today. Players like Kennedy was second best. Even their top players didn't turn up? I'll leave that one, Bray. Get back to me. Is that?
I'm going to assume he meant didn't.
Yeah. And potentially...
maybe not, because he said players like Kennedy was second best. That implies that he played well.
I thought it meant like second to the contest, kind of.
Well, how did Kennedy go? He had 23 disposals.
I felt like
I didn't
Kennedy
really notice him
was
as a big
okay,
factor.
but
like Fraser had 3 and 18. Riley West was good, 10 tackles, 2 goals, 17. English second most fantasy points. Bontempelli had 33 and 2. So I think that supports the idea that their players actually, like those best players, didn't play badly.
No, and the stat sheet would sort of suggest that.
Darcy was probably the only one that didn't really impact that much.
Yeah. It didn't feel like they isolated him that much either, though, to be fair. The game style looked fairly predictable moving the ball forward, whereas Freo definitely had that element of like, maybe that was because they were moving the ball from the back half quite a lot, but they just seemed to be able to, like every time I felt like Freo went forward, there was just that like miles of space. And you'd see like Tracy or Voss just tearing towards goal.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There was a counter-attacking nature of a lot of their goals, I reckon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the stats will say about where the ball spent its time, because like in the second quarter, I feel like it was in the Dogs' back half.
Yeah, that's when they went on that big centre clearance bombardment where like Sarong was coming.
Is that a word?
Probably not. No. Like, I do it.
I like it.
I'm creative.
Yeah, it's a perfectly cromulent word.